good morning, and good morning again. Sometimes in life, there are things that we desire, there are things that we're supposed to have, and it seems as if the provisionary method in which or by which God chooses to use is not going to happen, is not going to manifest. There are a lot of people that aren't living their dreams because they say, we need money. Here's the reality: you don't need money. You have a God of supernatural provisions. That's what we're going to talk about today. And just in case think you have a monopoly on God, that he can't bless whoever he wants, even the wicked, you need to tune in to Call for Time. We'll be back after this. What I need you to do in the meantime, invite somebody, share, tell them Call for Time is on.
Coffee time, coffee time. Yeah, this ain't your average cup of joe. Listen, I need it in the morning, I need it at night. He always keeps it brewing, he always keeps it tight. Just a little sip, it'll get you right. Terrence Pickett always be the one that gets the coffee right. The coffee's right, the coffee's right in my life. It's never a wrong time over crime to get what's yours and to get what's mine. Come on. Coffee time in my life. Coffee time feels so right. I need a little sugar, put it in my cup. Can you serve it, Terrence? Let me know what's up. And at the end of the show, you can brew another pot. Just make sure you make it hot. Come on. Time in my life. Coffee time feels so right. I need a little sugar, put it in my cup. Can you serve it, Terrence? Let me know what's up. And at the end of the show, you can brew another pot. Just make sure you make it hot. Come on.
And good morning, and good morning again. Another day, God's kept us. I know you think it was your lightning fast mind, but you didn't watch yourself over the night. It wasn't the alarm clock that got you up. It was a God that supernaturally provides, and for that we're grateful. So I was having a conversation with myself. How weird is that? How many of you do that? Yeah, I was having a conversation with myself about our topic this morning. I was kind of caught between a few ideas, and I landed on this one. But whatever dream you have, the same God that gave it to you is going to provide for it. I've got to keep telling you the same thing. You got to start walking it out in the earth. I didn't do my good mornings. Excuse and pardon my rudeness. Tina White McPherson, good morning. Andrea Mitchell, good morning. Rhonda Oliver, good morning. Star Wright, good morning. If you are on YouTube, you're the real MVP. You really are. And thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If you don't have a YouTube account, go ahead and get you one. I promise you, it'll be worth your while. Erica Austin, good morning. Good morning. Do me a favor, Andrea Mitchell, good morning. Do me a favor, invite somebody to share. Tell them Coffee Time is on. So be careful how I say this morning. Did you not know that in the lifetime of Yeshua the Messiah, Jesus, in his lifetime, the Jews had a hard time absorbing that he was the Christ? They did. They had a hard time believing that he was the Christ, because he didn't look. Bond Oliver, good morning. He didn't look the way they thought he should look. He didn't dress the way they thought he should dress. I think it was Isaiah that said there was no beauty that we should behold him, because he looked ordinary. He was so ordinary that when the soldiers came to pick him up, he had to be identified with a kiss. He was ordinary. The little halo that you see on the pictures. Hold on one sec. The little halo that you see on the pictures that Michelangelo drew up, that was not him. Hope Jordan, look at here, look here. Look what the storm blew in. Irvin Jones, what's up, bro? Christine Palmer, good morning. But the little halo that floats on his head, that's not how he looked. Jesus was so ordinary until he had to be identified, because there was nothing in the looks of how we deem spirituality. He didn't have on an old neck. He didn't have on a cross or a robe. He didn't have on the Episcopalian hat or the staff. He didn't have on a ring. He was an ordinary man. So ordinary, he could fit into the crowd. Now, this is the same man that walked on water, because his power was not in his physicality. In the natural, he walked. No one knew who he was until he identified himself. This is why throughout the scriptures, there are a lot of questions. Who are you? One time, Jesus even asked, hey, what's the word on the street? Who do men say I am? He was so ordinary. He looked like us. He moved. Because contrary to what you heard and what you may believe, that he was half man, half God. No, playboy. No, play. He was all man. He was all God. He was so ordinary that Judas had to identify him with a kiss. But he was so powerful in the spirit realm that when he came walking on the water, they thought it was a ghost. So his power was in the spirit world. Unlike today, he didn't walk around giving out his resume, passing out business cards. LaQuinta Demas, good morning. He didn't. He didn't have little cards saying, I am the Christ. Everything that he spoke in the name of his Father. And repeatedly, over and over, he identified himself in the name of his Father, speaking for his Father. But he would never tell people, I am the Christ. Here's why. One of the reasons why he wouldn't identify himself is because he knew the Jews sought to kill him and he didn't want to die before his time. So we see him turning over tables in the temple, because they did what they wanted to do in his church. He turns over the table in the temple. Immediately, he goes out and started running in the field, and they were throwing rocks at him because his power wasn't in the natural. And I think so many times we miss what he's trying to give us by trying to judge what it is in the natural. Corey Doolittle. Y'all, that's my brother from another mother. Hey, good to see you, my bro. So he did not identify himself of this world. He represented his Father. There are so many provisions I believe that we are missing because we try to identify who's going to be the hand that he uses to provide. There is a story of a prophet, Elijah. If I'm not mistaken, he was running because there was a woman trying to kill him. He had to hide in the cave. And he got fed daily by a raven. The significance of the raven is pretty interesting because God brought Elijah, his representative, his mouthpiece. He brought him supernatural provision in a cave. He fed him. But he brought him clean food through a dirty bird. He brought him clean food through a dirty bird. So many times we try to dictate where the provision should come from. And we look at the source, the physical hand that serves supernatural provisions, and we decide whether it's godly or not. Latrina Donald, good morning. Good to see you. Dewan McIntyre, good morning. And you're going to find out more and more and more that just about everything that he's going to provide for you, he's going to use an unlikely source and an unclean source. This is why you cannot afford to rest in the religious lap of your laws, your concepts, and how you think he's supposed to move. He uses whoever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants. And I'm going to say that again. Most of the provision for the plan that you have is going to come through an unlikely source and an unclean source. So let me try to unveil as much as I can. The world runs off of a system. And the reason Black people, we are so upset in many cases is because we don't understand the system of our world. Now, let me tell you who understand the system of the world. The world. They understand that everything is driven off principle and law. The world understand that, prayer is the commodity of heaven. But money is the commodity of earth. And the world understands in the earth realm, prayer does you no good without resources. So while many people focus on pray, faith, believe, believing without action is not believing at all. You got to tap into the principles of the earth in order to get things done in the earth. One scripture says that the sons of darkness would be wiser than the sons of light, meaning the world will understand principle more than people who call themselves his, and they will tap into things and do great exploits without prayer, without faith, because the world doesn't run off prayer, off faith. It runs off of a system of principles. Are you speaking against praying and believing? No. I'm telling you, that's not how the world runs. Prayer is for you. Prayer is for you. Prayer is also so God can use you in the earth. Believing, faith is for you. It's trusting God. But when you get through praying, when you get through believing, you better tap into the principle. If you don't tap into the principle, there will be no promise. Nicole S., good morning. Yolanda Brooks, good morning. So for instance, it's a scripture that says that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. Well, if it's the wealth of the wicked, don't you know that their wealth, if they're wicked, they did wicked things to get it? Then God comes back and say, yeah, it's stored up for you. But there are two things you have to do. Number one, stop trying to judge the source and how it comes, and face the reality that the earth is the Lord, the fullness thereof, the world, and they that dwell therein. So everything that is, he did it. Now, there's a system in America. The system in America is built off of capitalism. There's a hierarchy. There's rank. If you look at our military, there's rank. Capitalism suggests that the poor should serve the rich. The middle class should serve the rich. Capitalism goes against the notion or idea that everybody can have an equal share. So there has to be a bottom floor, and then there has to be a top floor. In America, America has built a system where white rules. That's not to demonize white people. Because on one hand, the system is what's enforced to navigate the country. It's a system. But just because white people built the system, that doesn't make all white people evil. God used white people just like he does blacks. He uses whoever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants. He's God. He's in control. So just because the system was designed for them to rule, that doesn't mean all white people will rule and partake of the system that was designed for them to rule. This is one of the reasons. There are a lot of white people who don't understand white privilege, because we recognize it as black people. But until they've experienced it, until they've seen it, they have no point of reference. This is why some white people, when we say Black Lives Matter, they say white lives, all lives matter. They have no point of reference. Not all of them, because there's some wicked mugs out there. It's some wicked, and they know exactly what they're doing, but there are some who've not been exposed. They've not been learned. Think about it. We know what we know based on the environment that we've been raised in, and based on that environment in which we've come up, our experiences puts us in the know. Absent of those experiences, you have no idea. This is why Magic Johnson can go on TV, this was some years ago, and talk about the wealth of black people and how things have changed since the civil rights movement. I don't think they've changed. I think they shifted. Civil rights movement, the KKK put on robes and white hats. Modern era, they have on business suits. So they've shifted, not necessarily changed, but if you're not exposed to what is, you don't have a point of reference. You can't speak, even though you think you're in the know. Let me tell you something about money. People with money think they're educated. This is why you have so many celebrities. The cameras are in their face and they're asking them about global issues. And these celebrities have no point of reference to it. And they can say whatever they want and it's deemed as right because of a platform, because they're celebrities, because they have money. Money doesn't make you educated. And being oppressed doesn't make you dumb. So a lack of resources doesn't give you a voice. Now that's Bible. The Bible says that a broke man needs to be quiet. And it's not talking about how much money you have. It's talking about the systems and the principles that you've worked. Generally speaking, especially in that day, rich people understood principle. Broke people didn't. So the rich got rich and the poor got poor. But in this American system, the system is designed to keep black people oppressed and poor because we were not brought here to be equal. And as much as we hate it, as much as it's a struggle dealing with it, the reality is the reason there are so many atrocities against us is that this country was not designed for us. So we're having to overturn grassroots seed that have been planted years ago just to get it an equal opportunity. And the reason it's taking so long, you're dealing with 400, almost 500 years of seed, tree, and fruit against a group of people. It's kind of like if you plant an oak tree in your backyard, that oak tree is 400 years old. You're not just going to go out there and think you're going to, we're going to uproot it. No, it's going to take you a long, long time because the roots have grown too far. And just because you chop the tree down don't mean you've captured the root. So the root of America is seated in capitalism and oppression, where white people rule, black people serve. That is the mindset of this country. We can't be angry with all white people because you got some Hispanics that think they're better than us. Some Asians. Them Asians, y'all go and get your hair from those weave shops. They follow you all through the store. Then you go to the little Chinese restaurants. They're rude, talk to you in a kind of way, treat you in a kind of way. And my thing is, if we're going to be fair in demanding justice from whites, we have to do the same thing with every nationality. No nationality is superior to the other. I do not believe that we're necessarily equals as it relates to understanding. We're not equals, but as it relates to humanity, we are. So what happens to black people? We feel like we have to kiss up to move up in the ranks with whites because we understand they're in control. So many of us have to dumb ourselves down. Watch. to fit into a system that wasn't designed for us just to get attention. Now, I don't believe we have to live like that. Whatever system that you create in your mind, Nikki Mitchell, good morning. Whatever system you create in your mind will control and dictate your thought patterns. I've heard people, black women, who use another name because their name seems to be less threatening. They have to lower their tone when they talk. And they believe that it was their wisdom in navigating through these, I call them places of oppression, that causes them to basically create another identity, an alter ego, in order to survive in the workplace. Well, I don't know. I'm not there. I believe we have to alter who we are based on the environment anyway, whether it's white people or black people. You got some hateful black folk out there too. That if you really showed up in the volume of who you are, they'll cut your head off as well. And I think humanity at large, especially with men, because men are egotistical, we don't like to be challenged by another man who can outshine us, outposition us, more gifted than us. So we look for ways to chop them down so that we could gain control. I don't think that's a race issue. I think that's a human issue. Still understanding the system in the United States, I'm not dismissing its problems, its poison, but in actuality, you go anywhere in the world, the reason there are wars is because of ego, pride. So how can we get ahead? How can we get provisions in a world that seeks to keep us oppressed? Do raises come because we're smart? Because we know how to play into the system? Do provisions happen because we're good? We're excellent at our work? Or do it happen because we know someone in the system? It's not none of it. Because if it came because we knew somebody, then everybody that knows someone inside of the system would get a raise. So it can't be that. If it came because you're good, I can guarantee you at least 75% of you are excellent at what you do, but you've been overlooked for promotion. So it can't come because you're good at your craft. There is a system, the American system here, right? God has a system that's here. Just because God has a system doesn't mean the world system changed, doesn't mean America's systems change. It's a system of this world. There's a system that America is built off. It's a buddy-buddy system. But you can tap into a higher system, that be the kingdom of his Christ. God's system is God's way of doing things. A lot of time people are thrown off when we say kingdom, the kingdom of his Christ, the kingdom of God, and we think about these castles and God sitting at the head. But it's just a system. It's just a way of operation. So when we tap into principle that is governed by the system that God has put into place, you're going to win whether you're good or evil. Faith is not reserved for Christians. anybody that believes can have, because it's a principle. Reciprocity doesn't work because you speak in tongue and you shout. In fact, because I'm a church boy, I grew up Pentecostal, holiness, Church of God in Christ, and the majority of the people that I deem to be spiritual, that God sincerely used, they were broke. Even now, the people that claim to be God, operate in the God system, got a relationship with God, get gift of discernment and they broke. And they think that tithing and giving is going to make them rich. Tithing is not going to make you rich. It keep the curse off you, I believe, because it requires a level of trust. It's not going to make you rich. You say, well, he said he'll open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing. You don't have room to receive. Show me one person that has it. Show me one person who is so blessed they don't have room to receive. Now, when you bring them to me, I'll show you they didn't get that by tithing. They got that by understanding systems and principles. And they tithe, but they tapped into systems and principles. I don't want to get in the whole tithing and giving thing. So you have this system of capitalism in America, and everything that is in America has similar systems in place. This is why in corporate America, the people that run the company do the less work. The people on the front lines, the people that are talking to the customer, to the client, handling the complaints, they do the bulk of the work, but they have no say-so in the running of the company because that's how the system is designed. It's the same thing with church. You got the white and the black prophet ripping you off. It's not just white evangelicals. Using faith as a coin to rob you and hold you hostage of God's blessing by prophesying to you what God's going to do if you, and not telling you the whole truth that it's already done. You don't give to get from God. You give because you have. I don't give to get favor from God. I don't have to do that. I'm his. He's my daddy. I give because I have favor. It's a heart thing. So you can't stand me up in a money line and tell me God's going to bless me and prophesy to me and then tell me the Lord said give $5,000. If it doesn't bear witness within my heart, you're not getting it. And I won't be embarrassed by telling you no. You're bold enough to ask. I'm bold enough to tell you no. So there's a system even in the church that keep the lay member down, while the apostle, the prophet, the pastor, the teacher, and the evangelist win. Capitalism in the church. Spiritual politics in the church. The same system in the world operates there. It shouldn't be. And it's a double-sided coin, because when you're a part of a community or an organization, you should support it financially. You shouldn't have to be tricked to give. You should give because giving is right. It's the principle that causes you to gain. You don't get increased by saving. Get increased by investing. And when you invest in the cause of God, he's going to always give you more than you can handle. He is. You can't beat his giving. So on one hand, you have slick preachers, slick people using spiritual tricks to get to the place of your emotional state where you're moved. And while you're being emotional, they press in a little harder to get that wallet. But it's the same trick that your companies do. Anybody that works overtime, we're going to pay you double time and a half. But you're giving me what I already deserve. But the reason I can't get what I deserve, it's because of the system that I'm in. It's not designed for me to get rich. Who do you know that punch a clock became a millionaire off what they did? No, everybody that tapped into the riches of the world, tapped into the system and principles of the world. And it gave them a voice globally. This is why Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, who are they? What do they do? That they're able to be aids and voices to world leaders. They got money. Money increases your voice. So when it comes down to supernatural provision, supernatural, above natural provision, where you don't have to tap into the concept or the construct of America because it's seated in hate. They founded America by murder. They murdered the Indians. They raped their kids, took their wives, took their sons, held them hostage, made slaves out of them, put the American flag up, took their food and called it Thanksgiving, then prayed to God to tell him thank you for giving them the land. Obama gave away millions and millions of dollars to Indians because of what America did to those people. Then America stole the land, then went to the Bible and wrote the Constitution. That's why if you look at the laws of the land, they are Willie Will, what's up? Willie Will is on. America killed the Indians, stole their land, then took the Bible, wrote the Constitution, based the Constitution on the Bible after they had murdered, raped, and literally caused hell to the native Indians. And this is why white evangelicals protect the character of America. This same America, the flag, the red in the flag, believe it or not, represents the blood of Jesus. Because in their heart, they thought they were doing God a favor and operating as a Christian should. So why Thomas Jefferson in the day occupied the highest office in our country by helping to facilitate George Washington, the Constitution, write it, create systems, and use the Bible to build the Constitution, they went home to slaves. They had children from slaves. They raped slaves, killed slaves, then showed up at the White House to write the Constitution. So, I do not believe as black people that you're going to gain, some will, some won't, by operating in the system of America. But you can tap into the principles of God, the things that God established. And when you tap into his principles, you tap into his plan. And that is how supernatural provision is given. And listen, he will use the dirty hands of the people that killed the native Indians, them same dirty hands. He will use a dirty system to raise up clean people to operate in a place of darkness and be the light. He will use the wealth of the wicked to establish his plan for his kingdom with his people. So I believe that we have to equip ourselves to go into the four corners of the earth. It's bigger than church, the building. I'm going to say something here, and I want to give balance. I believe in the fellowship of the saints. I believe in the gathering of those of us who share the same ideologies as it relates to the faith. I never believed that your life's supposed to be church. I think we spend too much time in the building. We can't reach the world because we're being held hostage by testimony service, by praise explosion, by worship experiences. These worship experiences were to equip us to take our seat in the world, not demolish our time. And now we only have time to go to work and go to church. And I think COVID has caused us to rethink a lot of things. And I think the time that we spend in church is abnormal. We've gone from one oppressive state of addiction to another. So now a lot of us are addicted to preaching, addicted to the worship experience, addicted to the byproducts that we get from congregating together. And in that addiction, we are no longer sober into operating in the principles we're being taught. We operate in the principles we're being taught to gain money, and never understanding the principles of God is to establish his way of doing things throughout the earth. So you have people in Hollywood who don't go to church on Sunday because they can't, because their work, they're occupying on the entertainment mountain. That's their sphere of influence. While you got preachers in church preaching against their sphere of influence, where God's called them to be a light in that particular area. They've tapped into that principle. They are the light in that place. But because they don't show up to YOLA services on Sunday and Wednesday, they're demonized. And the reality is, everybody that God calls, he doesn't send through y'all church. But all of them have to come through his principles. So you should never be impressed by the gift or giftings of people to the point that you become so intoxicated that you don't operate the principles that they should be teaching. You know why a lot of us miss church, including me? We miss that environment. I miss that Hammond. I do. I miss someone holding their ear and screaming. That is because it's a part of my culture. It's a part of how I grew up. So my soul has a certain tie to that addiction. And you've been raised all these years on that addiction. To go a year without it, you're having withdrawal symptoms. Because if we were being the church that we are, yeah, we couldn't congregate for a year plus. But wait a minute. Isn't God mobile? You shouldn't be missing or lacking anything. You're missing and lacking what your soul has been tied to by the culture that you've been a part of. So now we're around here saying ignorant things like, I miss church. When the Apostle Paul talks about church, when Peter talks about the church, when Jesus talks about the church, they're talking about ecclesia, the called out one. That is not a building where we have worship experiences. The tent didn't come before God. The tent was built, the tabernacle was built for God to meet his people because he did not indwell them. For the new covenant people, the body is the church. He wants to take up residence, so you miss his residence. When you say you miss church, you miss his residence? No. A part of you missed the people. Part of you missed just leaving that house. And a part of you missed the experiences that you encountered in the four-wall structure. But you need to know that's not the church. It's a building. And this is why it's just a building. No shade here. But in my grandparents' neighborhood, my grandparents lived in Magnolia Garden, right up the street, not far. There was a place called the Silver Stars where all the drunks, dope heads, it's where they hung out. It was their disco, their party night. A lot of babies came out of Silver Star. Well, now it's a church. They made the Silver Star sanctuary. No shade, and I know if you talk to them, they say they're taking back what the devil stole. No shade. My point is, we are the church. The building is just where we have an experience, but the building is not church. So when you say you miss the church, here's what you're saying. You miss the addiction that it gave your emotions. Now, so now you think God ain't going to provide because he don't have a building? Because they closed the buildings down. So you say, well, we never closed our church. You're not listening. You are the church. You're ecclesia. The building is just a meeting place. And I think we need to dwell together. Oh, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. But it wasn't specific in location. We can have church in our house, church in the car. A friend of mine got saved in the park. I got a friend that got saved while he was high. His name is Chris Langham. He was smoking weed, and God interrupted him and blew his high. So God's not limited to a building, but he is limited by principle. He doesn't have any respect of person, but he does have a respect of principle. Giving is your way out and your way up. Promotion doesn't come from the east or west. It doesn't come from who you know, what you know. Promotion comes from God based on the governing principle. I'm telling you, God has put you in the driver's seat of your own success based on the principles you activate and deactivate. And when you live by principle, you can predict the outcome. I'm going to say this last thing and I'm out of here. If you're on YouTube, you're the real MVP. Let me give it up for all y'all on YouTube. Thank you very much for following us on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, no, if you're on Facebook, thank you for tuning in however you will. But I wish that you all would get a YouTube account. YouTube, because Coffee Time is tapping into the principles of this earth. YouTube promised to pay us a certain amount of money if we would house our show there. And when you comment, when you're saying stuff, all of that goes into the credits that is needed to monetize our YouTube channel. Nothing against Facebook, because we need it too. But I'm going to say this last thing. Supernatural provision happens when you live above the earth system. Principles are spiritual. You can activate the wrong principle and it'll get you killed physically, because the principles are spiritual. They are conceptual. It's a state of mind. Again, this is why you don't get increase by saving, you get increase by giving. It's the law of reciprocity when it's exercised that brings you a harvest. I receive more because I give more. And if greed sits at the heart, then you'll always work and operate in deceit and manipulation, because greed's going to make you lie, cheat, steal. You'll step on somebody because you're greedy. But if you're a giver, you'll never go without. God's way of raising up somebody somewhere to use their power, their ability, and their influence to bless you comes through you operating in that same principle of giving. When you give, and I'm not talking about coffee time. That's one channel. I'm talking about your street corner, your neighborhood. Y'all want to talk about reaching the world, and nothing against reaching the world. It's our job. It's our obligation. But I'm always mesmerized. I served at a church where we stepped over the homeless and went inside the church and took up missions offering. Nothing against helping Africa and other countries. I believe it's our job, our duty. But how you going to step over your own neighborhood to feed somebody in Africa? And whenever I would ask this particular church, you do know we stepped over the homeless coming in, quickly they want to change the subject, and they asked me to stop talking in these meetings. And for those of you that know my history, I'm going to tell you this: it wasn't New Covenant and it wasn't Bethel. We stepped over the homeless. Literally, the homeless were sleeping at the doorstep of the church, but we taking up money, giving it to evangelists in other countries. Why don't you take up that offering and deal with your own community first? After you reach the people in your community, then you're supposed to go, it's Judea, Samaria, and the utmost parts of the earth. We have a homeless problem here in the city. The heck you mean sending money across the country, across the water? You're going to be God to them and overlook those that are, you got people in your own church who don't have groceries. But you want everybody to give to the foreign mission office. That pastor should be hung. It's an injustice. He's not even serving the people that are serving him. You need to get him out of there. I don't understand it for the life of me. So-called Christians believe in God for supernatural provision, but won't be helped on their own block. And now I'm not talking about the building church. I'm talking about the people church. Your neighbors are in need. How many of you, don't answer this, but how many of you doing this? So let me give you this. A pandemic is global. An epidemic is certain groups. This is not a pandemic because the only people that were affected by COVID-19 was America and her allies. But I know y'all believe everything that the news tell you, so I'm going to leave you to that. But if you do your research, it's an epidemic. But how many of you during this time of COVID checked on your neighbors to see what they need? Checked on people who you know are struggling, and you help meet their need. We don't even live off of the principle of sacrifice because we think we're supposed to have. We feed our greed instead of meeting others' need. I believe you're supposed to give to your church. I do. But I don't believe that's the only place that you're supposed to give. Give to your church, and you need to give to your community, and then you need to keep an open heart just in case God tells you to give towards something else. Got preachers with gold mics and spending $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for a microphone, and people in their own church have need. And this is around the world. There's a preacher out in Louisiana was bragging about how much he paid for his PA system. It does you no good if people ain't coming. Well, we're getting ready for them to come and spending millions of dollars on buildings and won't spend $5 for the people. Something's wrong. And I think people ought to start walking out of these churches that don't minister to them and the community. I don't need a church experience. I got YouTube. I shout at the house. Supernatural provision happen when you tap into the principles that God have set before us. It's tough, man. It's tough. When I watch preachers talk about how God has blessed them and the reason they have what they have is because they live by faith. No, you have what you have because you got a lot of members that give a lot of money. Well, I don't take a salary from my church. You take them love offerings. And if your church is big, it don't take but one. So you can't brag by not taking a salary. You say, well, I don't take a salary or a love offering. I work, I'm a man of occupation. Yeah, but you're selling books and CDs. You're merchandising the people that you're pastoring. So I don't want to hear this stuff about you not taking an offering. Oh, you don't work something out. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have. If they serve the people, I think the people ought to serve them. What I am against is the lie that you tell behind it. Let's tell the truth here. You travel and preach the gospel and they pay you. And I think we've got to revisit some of these things. We've got to shift our thinking. And people, you keep these crooks employed, whether it's Kenneth Copeland, Joyce Myers, all of the people that sided against black folk, Chris Hodges, Church of the Highlands, his organization. Oh, we forgive you. But if you want to make it right, Benny Hinn, and Benny Hinn came out and said the way that we teach in prosperity is wrong. I got convicted. Well, Benny, pass them checks out. All the money black people have sown, give them their money back. But we keep them on TV. Kenneth Copeland told y'all the Lord told him Trump was going to be president again. Kenneth Hagin, Franklin Graham. And these are the people, black folk. You sending your money to these jokers. And who is the little fella that be screaming on BET in the middle of the night? This is why I can't leave my TV on, because I got to listen. Hey, talking about Keys, Kearney, and Bob Tilton. This is where y'all send y'all money to, and they're going to send y'all holy water. in cloths from Israel, in dirt from Jerusalem. That dirt don't mean nothing. The Son of Man lives in you. All the power you need, you have indwelling in you. And you steady throwing that money out, believing hype. Well, let me help you. That holy water didn't help you during COVID. I should have heard one of them preach. For all of you that bought the holy water, the Spirit of the Lord told me to tell you to drink it, and if you drink it, you won't get COVID. Eat some of that dirt from Jerusalem. Put that prayer cloth that I bought you from Israel over your head, and everything that you touch, nobody's going to get COVID. No, man. Believers were dying from COVID. Bishops and pastors, the saints. And there's stuff about it we don't understand. I still don't understand it. And just because I have the answer, him, doesn't mean he will reveal the answer. You got to tap into the principle, people. Share this last thing and I'm done. The law of gravity, what goes up, what comes down, does not change because you step into an airplane, which is the law of aerodynamics. The law of aerodynamics operates at a higher level than the law of gravity. So even though I step into the law of aerodynamics, it does not change the law of gravity. And that's how it is with principle and law. There are levels to the laws. What you don't know can kill you. It can, because it can have you operating on a lower law. To be spiritual minded is not y'all speaking in tongues, acting like you intoxicated in the Holy Ghost 24/7. That ain't got nothing to do with nothing. It's how sober you are in activating and walking in the principles that have been set to advance the things that he's placed in your heart on earth. I believe everybody has a mission or something you were created for a reason. You unveiling that reason, when you tap into principles, it will create the provision for your reason for living. Until you tap into that, you're wasting your time living. Hey, that's Coffee Time. Thank y'all for joining me this morning. I so appreciate and love you. Hey, we talked about giving. This is good. This is good ground here. I promise you, to our monthly supporters, thank you. Those of you that support us in any way, whether it be financially, telling others about us, sharing it, inviting somebody to share it. Listen, we need it all. And I so appreciate you for getting involved and being a part of what we do on this side of heaven. If you would like to join us financially, one time, monthly, whatever the case is, you can give to sponsor Coffee Time. Your seed keeps me from being a puppet, and it helps expand our platform. We're going back on network TV. We've been working on getting the equipment that we need, getting the editors that we need. There's a lot that goes on behind the scene before you can submit a show to network television. But I put the vision before you. It's going to happen. I promise you that. We did release a single. We're working on a video for that single, and we're working to do another concert. We would like to air it Mother's Day. It's just depends on how much money comes in, because it can be taxing by yourself. This is why we have partners. This is why we have you. And this is why I so appreciate you supporting this vision on this side. Thank you. I'm telling you, when I say I can't do this without you, no, straight up. Without your ear, I don't have a voice. You make this possible. We are a marriage made in heaven. We're called to do life together, and I'm glad God called you to help me, and I'm glad to help you. I'm glad that we are one. Remember, you were born to win, predestined to succeed. There's nothing that can happen to you today that the wisdom on the inside of you is not able to answer and handle. But you got to calm down. Use emotional intelligence. Trust God. Shut your mouth. Know when to speak. Know when to listen. And let wisdom speak for you. When wisdom speak, you will always win. Y'all go be productive today. Tap into the right principles, and I promise you'll gain the right promise. Always remember to think higher. Speak life. I love you. Promise you I do. See you next time.
Coffee time, coffee time. Yeah, this ain't your average cup of joe. Listen, I need it in the morning, I need it at night. He always keeps it brewing, he always keeps it tight. Just a little sip, it'll get you right. Terrence Pickett always be the one that gets the coffee right. The coffee's right, the coffee's right in my life. It's never a wrong time over crime to get what's yours and to get what's mine. Come on. Coffee time in my life. Coffee time. Feels so right. I need a little sugar, put it in my cup. Can you stir it, Terrence? Let me know what's up. And at the end of the show, you can brew another pot. Just make sure you make it hot. Come on.